All right, welcome to another episode of Blue is the New White. I'm here with a very special guest today, Mr. Eddie McFarlane. Eddie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, happy to. Thrilled to be here. As you said, my name's Eddie, and I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, as they say. I'm just thrilled to be talking to somebody else that is sold out on the trades as I am.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. You kind of know what we talk about here on this podcast, the perception of the trades, and kind of the direction it's headed, the direction that it needs to head, for the benefit of the future economy and society and everything else. So why don't we just start off by introducing everybody to who exactly you are? What do you do? Why do you think I reached out to you, or why do you think we're collaborating?
Yeah, great. So I'll start by background and we'll meander where it takes us. I think largely what we have in common is I work in the trades today. My background is I started as like many of your listeners in the field in a truck. Interestingly, this is my second career, but I'm an HVAC service tech to trade. Did that for a number of years. Was fortunate to work with just a ton of great teachers and mentors, and get a lot of opportunity to do lots of different stuff. So did a little bit of inside the office, a little bit of sales management. I was able to work with commercial, residential, dabbled in marketing enough to be opinionated, and that's generally what I tell people. I'm not qualified, but I am opinionated. So yeah, mostly within the mechanical trades. I work for a company in central Pennsylvania that's been just a great sponsor of my interests and my opportunities to advocate. And Haller Enterprises, family owned mechanical company, 5 locations, 400 or so great teammates, and just a phenomenal culture and environment to be in that sort of inspires you. Like this morning, I was with our service techs, and they're just, man, we're very lucky. I'm very lucky.
Always happy to hear something like that. Haller's been around quite a while, haven't they?
Yeah, so it's funny. So I grew up in Scotland, as people are probably starting to figure out. So I came to America when I was 21. To marry my wonderful, long-suffering wife, and did the thing, got married, had kids, and just really lucky there as well. But not growing up here, and maybe perhaps having a different perspective, I really enjoy taking the opportunity to remind people, especially today, because I think politics aside, I think everybody agrees that it's just kind of a crazy time, and it's easy to think that it's broken. But I think it was Churchill that said, democracy is a terrible form of government. It just happens to be the best one. And I'm reminded of that every day as I see businesses start up, young men and women, take that entrepreneurial leap. And Haller's that. It's started by Rick Haller, electrician to trade, in 1981. Takes a small loan, gets a truck, puts parts in it, and start knocking on doors. And in a free market society, the more value you add, the more you're rewarded. And he's just been able to build a phenomenal team, attract top talent, and keep growing to this day. So it's a great story, and I think it's a quintessentially American story.
I would have to agree 100% with that. I always love to hear stories like that. It's I'm drawn to stories like that, like getting started in a garage, like Apple. And I always like to compare my company to Apple for some reason.
Sure. Who's going to argue? We'll start in the garage, right? It's great.
Yeah, right. But really it is, it's the American dream in full swing, and that entrepreneurial journey is one that I know many people desire to take,
Yeah.
especially probably a lot of today's youth. I think
Hmm.
that, entrepreneurship is on this pedestal right now that everybody aspires to do something. I shouldn't say everybody, but, a lot of people aspire to do something similar to that. Um,
Yeah.
which is,
And
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, what's great is whether you aspire or not, the reality is you can if you want to.
Exactly.
And that's just, I mean, I think, I'm fortunate enough to travel. I was in third world uh, earlier this year with my daughter, and it's good to step back from your circumstances and take a reality check that there's none of us. Well, I doubt few of your listeners had to get up and walk 3 miles for fresh water today, right? I like to remind myself and my friends that most of our problems are first world problems, right? Bad Wi-Fi and airport delays. it's
Right.
my grandfather was a coal miner back in Scotland, and every once in a while, when I'm like tempted to complain, I just sort of imagine him, fresh from the pit face, sort of lamp in hand, going, tell me again how bad it is. And it sort of puts my world in perspective, and it's sort of the lens that I sort of evaluate my day-to-day existence through.
Yeah, no, I think we all should take a little dose of that every once in a while, just to remind us, because that's one of the things I talk with my own family about, and all of my employees here about, is perspective. And look, things really aren't that bad, no matter how you slice it. Look, you've got a great job. If you're working here, you got, especially my 4-year-old daughter, right? I mean, she's
Mm.
the TV won't play. It keeps skipping. Well,
Right.
okay, go play with the
Yeah.
rocks in the backyard. What do you want me
Yeah.
to do?
So the reality is, and we talk about this. I like to kick off our meetings with "Tell me something good," and we talk about this because it's easy to forget. But the reality is, when you want to look at it, there's 7.1, 7.2 billion people in the world. Um, Anybody that's in the U.S. and listening to this is in the top 2% of earners in the entire world. And if we're thinking it's bad, there's about 7.1 billion people that would switch places with us in a heartbeat. So, which isn't to say there aren't hard days, but it's good to keep the counterbalance in our mind.
Absolutely. Just remind yourself how fortunate you are. Right.
Right
And
on.
that's what it is. So let me ask you this. And this is going to be great, I think, because you're one of the first people I've had on that grew up outside of, I guess, North America.
Yep.
So tell me about the dynamic when you were in high school with the trades. Did you know about them, and were they kind of pushed in Scotland, or how does that different than here?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, the education, both as a function of being in a different country, but also, let's just say it's a few years since I left high school. It is different than today. So back home, the trades were sort of the education system when I was in high school. When you turn 16 and you finish your fourth year of higher education in high school, you get the option to leave with your certificates there. If you have a trade, if you're going to be an apprentice on a job site, then you can leave there. You can leave in fifth year, or you can stay to 6th year, leave then, or move on to further education. So the trades is something that was talked about, because you would, at the end of the fourth year, you would hear, some of your friends would be moving on, and sort of that sort of thing. And so it was it was encouraged for the right candidates, and I think there's sort of a proud. I grew up in Scotland, halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh. There's sort of a proud working class culture. Yeah, everyday hero was sort of it. I grew up with a lot of coal miners, coal towns, and that sort of thing. My dad was sort of in the trades. He worked on building sites. He was a painter and decorator, and later would go on to work on oil rigs and sandblasting and all kinds of industrial stuff like that. His brothers were in the trades, electricians and stuff. So it was very much a part of our everyday life.
Very cool. So how then did you get into the trades? Did you opt to leave and go to the trades from high school, or?
No. So what was interesting is for for me, my first career, and I think you might appreciate this, given your guys' area of focus, is I worked in kitchens. I used to be a chef.
Oh, very cool.
So I stayed through 6 years, and then I worked in the hospitality industry. And when I first came to the States, that's actually what I was doing. I worked in Philadelphia and some of the hotels and restaurants in the area. But the life in the kitchen, as I'm sure you know, is pretty demanding, especially if you want to start a family. It's a lot of nights, weekends, holidays. Basically, when you're looking to have a good time, chefs are working. So Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas, all of those sort of things, nights, weekends. And so there was actually through my church, our church had a small group, and this would have been 20 plus years ago. But believe it or not, there was a labor shortage in the industry. I'm not sure if you're aware that the trades have a labor issue, but but even back then, they were looking for people, and it must have been bad because they gave me a show. And it was a great small family-owned business. It's still very much in business today. But they had a great process for bringing on people from outside the trade. I know there's a lot of contractors that sort of focus on that sort of thing and have that career pathing and stuff sort of like really nailed down. And so I made a deal with him. If he was comfortable, I didn't want to reflect badly on him. So I did a ride along, figured, didn't look. There was it was a service company, so there was a lot of people interactions. I like people, and I thought, that would be interesting, and I was fortunate enough to give it a try, and like I say, from day one, had some people that were really intentional about making sure I learned good fundamentals, good basics, and then I'm sort of wired to ask lots of questions. I'm basically like that sort of 5-year-old hyperactive nephew that you have that's like, but why, and so it worked out well. And I progressed from the tool carrier to the sort of PM tech to service tech to on-call tech, and that was my experience there.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, very lucky.
Yeah, sounds like it. And you had mentioned the fundamentals. The fundamentals in this industry, I think, are just so important for success. And judging by what you just said there, it sounds like you did a pretty good job, consistently climbing that ladder through the trades to end up maybe in a position that you seem well suited for. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. My technical title is I'm Vice President of Learning and Development here at Haller Enterprises. But I'd say, I think most of us in the trades, and I'm sure we'll get to about the current debate about the quality of people entering the trades, right? There's a lot of opinions on there, but I was very fortunate to get brought in and then to be mentored and provided some opportunities. I think of I think Jim Collins in one of his books talks about who luck, right? That just the luck of, like, there's a lot of people that work hard every day, and I've been very fortunate to work hard, but also to have some opportunities, and they came with accountability and expectation, but at the same time, I just recognize the opportunities that have been given, and I've enjoyed them, and it's one of the things that I think is not talked about enough in the trades is, within the trades, there's a wide spectrum. Like if you want to turn a wrench every day, God bless you. Lord knows we need more and more and more of that. But if you want to move to, if you're an organizational sort of Zen master and you want to work in dispatch and support, and if you're like just a total empath and you resonate with customers, then we've got customer care teams. If you want to do marketing, if you want to do technical training, if you want to do mentorship, I really think that, because of where we're at in this day and age, with the current employment climate, there's really something out there for everybody. If we sort of take a step back a little bit and just look around and sort of, I forget who says it. There's this sort of, don't ask what you want to do, ask what makes you come alive. And I think for many of us, this job's hard, right? It's demanding. There's a lot of expectations from a lot of corners, but there is opportunity to really make a difference. And I think that's if you get something that you do that every day, what is it? If you love your work, you'll never work a day in your life, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, especially with the coming generations, that's so important, right? Because everybody wants to make an impact. Everybody wants to make a difference, even more so than everybody wants to bring home the biggest paycheck, but it seems as though in their eyes, a lot of their eyes, the trades are sort of one dimensional, right? It's,
Yeah.
you know, in the trades, this is what you do. This is what you look
Plumber's a
like.
plumber's a plumber. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so here's my take on this. So I love, I'm a big fan of HVAC Reaper guy. I get to a lot of conferences. I hear a lot of speakers, and I actually think what Mike has to say about intergenerational workforce development is probably some of the most articulate and relevant stuff we have to say. So if any of your listeners, I know he's been on your show a couple of times. I think it was his most recent one here a couple months ago. He's just spot on, and he's dialed in on that zone. And I think my take on this is, I think for a certain extent, as an industry in general, we're sort of waiting for the PR company to show up and tell our story, right? And I'm like, anytime I get a chance to share at events or conferences or breakout sessions, or even just with our own team, the message I have is, we're it. There's no cavalry coming. There's no, I forget who was talking about, like, short of like Bruce Willis in his next action summer blockbuster, taking on the mild-mannered role of an HVAC tech doing the PM to him. Like, the world isn't going to naturally think of us. And so I think it's incumbent on every single person to, like, how much do we talk about it? When we're at the barbecue on the weekend and someone asks how it's going, do we sort of kick the ground and go, work, or do we say, hey man, it's been a rough week, but boy, look at this. I'm working over at this retirement community, and man, if we do it right, all these people that have been saving their entire life are going to have an awesome, incredible retirement. And that's like just something I'm jacked about, right? Like, how do we think about it, and how do we evangelize? And if we're waiting for someone to come and rescue us, what we'll find is the people that come will commoditize us. And I just, I think we all should take a long, hard look in the mirror. And I get a lot of grief about my LinkedIn post. That's probably my most, I don't get a lot of grief, but people say, like, oh man, I see you here, I see you there. And I don't post stuff to, like, I'm not that guy that sort of checks in at the airport lounge. But I actually, what to me has been good to my family, and tell our own story. Man, who do we think is going to tell it? And who's in a better position to tell it than us, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And I love that perspective. I think you're absolutely spot on with that, because it's often unintentional, right? I mean, people ask us about work, people ask us about our job, and it really is, especially in this industry, we come bearing a certain responsibility, I think, because of the state of this industry, right? This sector. So, what I like to do, because what I get most out of the trades is the challenge. It is hard, it is work, it is, long hours and all of that. But, there are people who, if explained properly, will thrive in that scenario. I mean, a lot of people want to be challenged, and I think there's a stigma right now of the younger generations and how they don't want to work and this and that, right? But at the end of the day, I think they do, and I think they want the challenge. They're just, they're up against this perception of them too, just like we're up against the perception of the trades in general. So it's like this constant.
So here's my hot take on this, because if I see one more Facebook post complaining about the state of apprentices and these people shouldn't be in the business, it's funny, because I want to ask, like, I was in the business 20 years ago. We act like there was no bad apprentices 20 years ago. Yeah, newsflash. Yeah, some of the ones that are complaining the loudest. We all learn at the speed of opportunity and the speed of the challenges presented. And yet I'll go in some of these Facebook groups, and on one post, people are complaining about the shortage of labor and how, young people don't want to learn. And then in the very next post, somebody will be like, hey, I'm stuck on this. Here's my pressures. Here's my temps. What could be wrong? They're like, man, you have no business being in the trades. You don't know. And it's like, well, okay, you gotta choose which side of the bed you want to sleep on here, because you can't have it both ways.
Yep.
I talk about, how we welcome people. I feel like I'm ragging on the trades. I'm preaching obviously to myself, but like when I think of just even how we onboard and welcome people to companies, most of it's by default, and I liken people's first day to like sort of falling into the gorilla pit at the zoo, right? It's they show up at a warehouse. Maybe somebody will meet them. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're people are ready for them, and there's just this hive of activity, and everybody sort of like we've all seen it, right? It's like this alpha male sort of behavior of like grunting and like
fresh meat.
Yeah, and it's like, and then we're like, man, I don't know why anybody doesn't want to come here, right? And so it's like, all right, well, and what's crazy is, and we have a laugh about this when I talk to some of the, like, I know these guys would give you the shirt off their back, right? They're good people, but yet we can't seem to get our own way. And so I think we can look at how we welcome people, how we represent the trade, but we gotta also recognize, we talk about how young people don't want to do this or don't want to do that. So I had some conversations with some other trades. A carpenter had his own company, construction, a concrete guy, and some of my other trades friends, and we talk about it. It's like we all, when we came in the trades, were told, well, this is what it is, and if you don't like it, hit the pike, right? And they're like, yeah, and we worked 60, 70, 80 hours, whatever, like we wore it like a badge of honor. But is that because we wanted to? Like which given the choice, why wouldn't we want to spend time with our family?
And it didn't become a badge until after they did it, right?
So and so there's this concept of like, well, that's how I came up, and it's part of the mission. And I think part of it, if we're honest with ourselves, is we're kind of mad that they don't necessarily have to go through the same rites of passages as we did. But that's the equivalent of, like, if you take that logic exercise and you take, I'm a big fan of trying to apply logic wherever I can. And so if you take that mindset, if a customer called us up and said, hey, 20 years ago, when I had your company replace my furnace, it was $1,800. And we're like, yeah. And we're like, well, I think you should do it for the same. It's the same job, same equipment, maybe a little bit different. But we're like, no, because of this. And there's all these reasons. Because things have changed. Circumstances have changed. Time's moved on. Is it fair to, no, would that homeowner like it to be $1,800 instead of whatever it is? Sure. But we all understand time's moved on. And when we apply that logic to the same situation, I think we need to have a reality check with ourselves and say, you know what, time has moved on. The cheese has moved. It's a new reality. It is what it is. We can complain about it, or we can understand it and be the first in our market to embrace it. And actually, there's this great saying that says the obstacle is the way, right? Like, I believe that the first people to really get their head around this and make this their unique differentiating proposition from a recruitment standpoint is going to just gonna wipe the floor. They're gonna be able to dominate a market because they'll be the one that controls all the labor.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree with that more. That everything that you just said is exactly, I see it every day, and it's even in my own company. It's a battle, and I have to actively work to make sure that that type of philosophy isn't here, from everybody within the company. And it's subconscious, I think, right? It's automatic. They just, that's the way that they were brought in, like you said, and that's the way that they continue to do it. One of the things I like to do whenever we get a new recruit in here or an apprentice is sit them down in my office and explain, exactly what it is, and then kind of get their perspective on things. I mean, how much I talk about perception and stuff like that. So I like to get ahead of that and try to understand what their perception is, before they actually come aboard, and then we work together. Where do you want to be in 5 years? How do you define success? All of that. And then, hopefully they feel a little bit more comfortable when they get thrown into that gorilla pit, because they
Right on.
understand their objectives a little bit more. And yeah, we do encourage, the right type of culture for new recruits to come in. So we'll see, but you're absolutely right with that. So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
you've seen my stuff. I talk a lot about college. You went to
Yeah.
college, right?
Yeah. At the young age of 40.
No, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you go to college for?
Because I needed to get smarter. No, I was a late student. College wasn't in the cards for me as a young man, and then I started a family. But I was aware that there were some areas I needed to get better. So I just started to take some classes, basic writing, and basic arithmetic. It was, there's only so many times in a meeting you're like, oh, what is that as a percentage of growth of year over year? And you're like, carry the two. At the one, and I was like, I need to sharpen the old sword. And so I started taking classes, and I had a couple of great teachers, and it just took. And so I ended up getting a business admin associate's degree.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. It was an enjoyable experience. It was something I'm glad I did, and yeah, big fan of learning.
Very cool. And yeah, so am I. I mean, I feel that, the best way to be stagnant is to just stop learning, and
Right.
so that actually brings up a really good point. Guy that was in my book and that I've done a podcast with, Carlo, one of the facility managers for Chipotle. We had a similar conversation because he started in the trades as well. And then he, made the conscious decision to go to college for business, which is a viable option, especially if the trajectory that you took within the trades is leading you toward, the business side of it. So I think that, and one of the things that he said was, it was the trades that enabled him to see that he even wanted to pursue a college education, and he wasn't forced into that decision right after high school. So, how do you feel about the relationship
Right.
there with college? And of course I want to put this disclaimer on it, because I always do. I'm not against college at all. People read my book and they're like, why do you hate college? No, I don't hate college. I'm just,
Right,
it's just,
right.
it's not for everyone,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a great discussion because I think we feel like it has to be binary, like you're a college guy or you're clean hands, dirty money type, and there's no sort of Venn diagram of both. I think the reality is it's when the student's ready, the lesson appears, and I think the reality is if I'd have went to college at 21, 18, whatever, I don't think I would have been successful. I didn't see it and feel it. Fast forward to I'm 40, and then I'm that old guy in class wrecking the grade curve for everybody else. I've got my 4 pens, I've got my journal sitting up the front because I can't see anything. So I think the answer is right for different people. For me, my personal motivation, it's sort of by proxy, because it was still about the trades for me, because I was being asked to make decisions that would affect, we have people that are getting up every morning and grinding it out in hot attics in basements, and they're counting on their leaders to make good decisions. And I think to be responsible, to have humility, and knowing that maybe there's some areas you can probably polish up on. I just think it's a good practice to I think a learning mind is sort of neurologically, they've done studies that show they're sort of wired different. That's why if you haven't taken a test in 4 years, you have that panic attack, because you're just not, the neurons are going different directions. So for me, I think if people feel like there's it's like anything else. What are you solving for? And for me, it was the ability to be able to look my team, whether it's the sales team or the field guys, in the eye and say, look, I'm showing up the best me I can. I'm investing in myself. I know you guys are taking the install manuals home and reading them, not just using them as sort of knee pads, right? I want to do the same. And I think it's about, you mentioned culture earlier. It's about culture isn't what you say, it's what people see, right? It's what's created by action. No, thoughts are good, but it's about our actions. And I think if people feel like there's an advantage, or even an economic part of the equation that they're trying to solve for by getting accreditation or degrees or whatever it may be, then great. But if to the same extent, if they're going out there and what they're focused on being a craftsman about doesn't require that, then I think it's fine, because I think at the end of the day, learning, for me, I had reached the point where informal learning wasn't having such a great return. I was reading, I was doing all that, but I needed help. And so that's why I went. And I think to the extent that people are being fulfilled by the leaders, the foremen, the project managers, and they're getting that learning, and they're feeling like they're advancing, then I think they might not feel that same need. But for me, I just felt that the personal need to move on. So I love education in whatever form it takes. I don't care if it's the kind of, behind the dumpster. So we have this formal learning, but then there's institutional knowledge that's getting ready to leave the industry with the Gray Tsunami. And it's the stuff that isn't in books. And that's just as valuable, man. That those exchanges behind the dumpster that when you're cleaning out your van and they're like, what'd you do yesterday? You're like, oh man, I was on this job and man, I kicked my tail. I couldn't quite figure out. And the other person just laughs. He's like, oh yeah, was it one of these? Yeah, you got to look behind here, and it's that. And that's not in a book, right? But that learning is critical. It's that institutional knowledge that we need to capture. And so learning, it's like anything. If you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, I don't know if it's worth it. But if it's solving a particular puzzle for you, your family, your goals, I'm all on. So a long answer, but that's kind of.
No, that makes sense. So with that being said, do you think that kids these days are being pushed towards college just to do it?
Well, I think so. So I have a 19-year-old daughter, almost 15-year-old son, and I try and avoid generalities, and in God we trust, all others bring data. So I think we need to sort of avoid. I don't think the general conversations are. Tend to polarize, but I'll speak about my personal experience.
Sure.
I think I went to my back to school nights. Everything was about SAT prep. Everything was about if you're gonna do SATs, if you're gonna go to college, then honors class, and it was all this. And I didn't, quite frankly, see any of the conversation around trades or nursing or some of these vocational stuff. And we have great vocational schools and colleges in our area. But could it be the way? So I forget who said about what gets measured. What gets measured gets managed. And I think we look at how do we hold our institutions, and we, the general populace, how do we hold our institutions to account? Well, we want to know that we're getting a return on our tax dollars, and what's your graduation rate, and how many of those are going on to school. So it's a kind of a systemic issue. It's the exact same. When we put a metric in place at work that we think is going to fix it, well, everybody just goes, oh, that's how you're measuring it now? Okay, I'll just do that, right? And without this holistic approach. So I do think it's part of the issue, is how we're rewarding, holding accountable, measuring the people that we put in charge of our children's education. And I'm a bit of a throwback, and I think schools and institutions are tools. I don't think it's their job to raise my kid. I think that's part of my job, but I understand that as a society as general, we do look to these institutions to have balanced and fair conversations. That being said, I'm a glass half full guy. I was in Ohio last month, and Upper Valley Career College, and man, they're just crushing that. They've got the trifecta. They've got the school, system on board. They've got the local businesses on board, and they've got the students come in, because the school system sees the end of the journey with the people that have jobs, and the businesses that are supporting them, so they feel good about it. They're putting the kids in. The businesses feel good because they know the students, not just kids, the students are going in and getting this great education and being supported all the way around. And so we're seeing students there graduate high school ready to join the workforce as a revenue generator. In some cases, working, doing a work share that final year and leaving with $20-some thousand in the bank. Isn't that a great success story? And how do we replicate that across the country? Those are the conversations I think I'm looking at engaging in my small part of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a great idea, and just another step toward, bringing it to the forefront. Absolutely.
So, like, I kind of think that we as industries then need to make sure that we're supporting not just with our lip service and all that, or letting the one guy go to the local trade school, but we're supporting that trade school and saying, like, we're employing. We don't just want the end result. Like, everybody wants the fruit from the tree, but nobody wants to water it. So do we have the open houses? Do we do the mock interviews? Do we write scholarships for the people that need it? Do we provide used tools? Do we provide used equipment? There's a million different ways to support these trade schools, and I think that's the if we can rally around that and do career nights, not just to hire, but to tell the local news like this to do our PR. Do we go to the middle school? Because I kind of think high school's a little bit too late. They've kind of, students have already started, and specifically parents have started to push their children in a certain direction, or I shouldn't say push, guide. So are we supporting our middle school and going to those career days and giving them our time?
That's very similar to what Mike said. Having to start even earlier than high school to really embed in kids' minds that they have options. And that there's options that maybe aren't talked about a whole lot, or for whatever reason. And so, I'm a big believer too that to educate the educators, educate the parents, of
it's an
students.
ecosystem. That's right. And listen, we can't just sort of throw our fists at the sky. People don't know what they don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? It's impossible to learn that which you don't know about. And so we can't just say, hey, here's a great job. We gotta just like when we're trying to win a customer's confidence. I think if companies took their entire marketing plans and budgets and just replicated that on their HR side and the recruiting side, and were equally intentional about creating customer archetypes, who's our ideal employee type, where do they go, what do they read? Okay, this is where we're going to go. What message do we need to hear? Boom, right? And I think if we can paint a picture and help people know, like, not just it's a great job, but tell them what the fruits of that job give them. I know a lot of trades guys that are driving their Denali up to the cabin on the weekend, right? It's a good family living wage, and I think our work-life balance in the trades, while it's challenging, has gotten a lot better. And I think that's a trend that will continue. And so, but I think we need to tell more of the stories. As people, as communities, that's what we resonate with. We forget facts, but man, we remember stories. And I think we as individuals can do a better job telling our stories and painting our pictures.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. So, we're going to skip the question of, what do you think are some of the most common perceptions in the trades, because we already covered some of that.
Yeah.
So my question is kind of going back to, how you are. I'm just going to ask why. Why are these? Why have these perceptions evolved over the years? And why do people think this stuff about the trades now when it used to be such a coveted and honored position?
Yeah, I think we can look at economic cycles. I think we can look at everything from leadership and management styles that have their roots in the military. If you want to sort of look at the long tail, you had an entire generation at that time of men go off and working and do their part in the army. And the army is very good at getting a large amount of people to do specific things with the right logistics at the right timing, coordination, and that's all about being efficient. And so they come home. There's an economic boost that comes post-war, and all of those people, they had created organizational structures and hierarchies that were very good at focusing on efficiency. And it was good because we had tons of labor. And so we saw a resurgence in the American economy. And I think that the business structures and what we valued started to be about the American success story of every child doing better than their father did is typically how I've always heard it. And so we saw this, and we saw these management principles of command and control start to be employed. If you don't like it, hit the pike. It was really easy in the army to make sure people did what they did. If you didn't do, you were court-martialed, had consequences. Right. And then that sort of trailed in. And when you think of the way a lot of us grew up, that's the kind of management style. There was a surplus of labor, so consequences were light. We could act a certain way in the trades, and as the demographics changed and options became more plentiful, people got choices, and so they started to look around and what was more attractive. And again, it's funny because my personal life, because I have a deep sort of love for the people in these trades. I kind of think they're the salt of the earth. Look, it takes a certain kind of soul in the middle of a snowstorm at 3 a.m. to get a call from a stranger, leave the safety of his home and his family, drive somewhere to get another family taken care of, either a leak stopped or heat back on in the home, and so they can be safe, and then worry about charging them $100 for doing it, right? These are the salt of our people, but we've had a bit of an image problem and a culture problem, perception wise. We can argue about the realities, but arguably the perception is that it was command and control, and I think the untold story about the shortage of the trades, labor in the trades, isn't that it's just in the trades. See, we're not just competing for our share of labor with the other contractors in town. If you pass a realtor, I'm sure you'll see signs saying, learn to be a realtor, we'll train you in house. When you talk to your other friends at your social gatherings, when you're at school, most industries are training and are hiring and willing to train, and so we've actually gotten hyper selective. So I think part of the perception is, options are always negotiations are always relative to options, and the reality is there's options, and perhaps maybe we were asleep at the wheel for some of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perhaps.
That makes sense. That makes at least some of us,
Right. Yeah, that's right. And again, I hate having binary comment because I know there's people that wake up and crush this stuff every day, but the general conversation that we're having today is, I think, to be constructive, that's the sort of input we have.
Absolutely. No, 100% again on that one. So this is a question I love to ask. What is the biggest lesson that the trades have taught you personally?
Oh man. Okay. So this is probably going to seem funny because I was late to the trades, but how to be an adult. And an adult isn't really an age. It's the realization, and I don't know if it was just the men and women I got to work around, or the reality of running a call and being on your own or whatever, but like the reality is, our working definition in our house is of an adult is that you and you alone are solely responsible for where you find yourself. and certain things happen, in life and on calls, on in our day to day, but we have a choice, right? Viktor Frankl says that between stimulus and response lies choice, and I learned that I can make better choices, and I think the trades is just a great way of dialing in on and giving you lots and lots of opportunity to make better choices. If you're a service tech, there's 4 or 5 calls a day you're running, and you're getting to be better. You're getting to practice. You're getting to work every day. If you're in the construction and you're running conduit, man, you're gonna hang a lot of conduit. And you're gonna get a lot of chances to get better and excel. And if you miss, if it's past 3 o'clock and you miss the order, you're gonna face the consequences of that tomorrow. And so it's just, I think this, and it's probably why we're so rough on ourselves, because we do kind of expect people to be adults and self-sufficient. And it's one of the things I love about the trades. I've worked personally with people that not only adulted pretty hard, but that were just great examples of character, right? Don't waste time arguing about what a good man is, just be one. And there's many silent, stoic giants that we all know that never say a word, but man, everybody watches them, and they're just the guys that like I aspire to be like. And I just feel like in the trades, there's just a ton of examples of people that we can replicate different facets of their life, and my life is better for it. And I opportunity. So
great answer. Really great answer. You're the first one that's actually said that adulting is what you learn from the trades. But I love it. I do. I think so. Let me ask you this, because we had just talked about kind of what the trades were to what they are now, and there was I don't want to say a lot more accountability back then, but there were greater repercussions for doing something wrong. As you said, there was a surplus at one point in time of labor. So, everyone was kind of, look, it was, let's call it what it is. Everyone was on a short leash, and, if they did something wrong, they could be reprimanded, even fired, but now in this current climate that we're seeing with the shortage and everything else, it almost seems like some employers are afraid to reprimand, afraid to hold certain people in the industry accountable, because they fear that they're going to lose them.
Yeah.
So how then do we kind of tie that together?
Yeah. So listen, every coin has two sides. There's generally an upside and a downside, but I think it's never what you say. I think it's always how you say it. And I think if we have an issue, it's not that we can't hold people accountable. It's the method that we choose to hold them accountable. Is it ad hominem? Are we attacking personality traits? Are we saying you're dumb? I can't believe you did this, versus hey man, because of this action, this is a consequence. And unfortunately, and I'm it can be serious. It can be like, you're unsafe. We can't have you here. I have a responsibility. So I don't think that we can't have accountability. I actually think what our teams are looking for is I've done a bunch of ride-alongs. I'm fortunate enough to get to visit a lot of different companies, and I try and get in a truck with lots of different techs when I can. And I was just having a conversation that with one of them about addition through subtraction. If you have a real sort of no BS behind the dumpster type conversation, most organizations have somebody that probably could use a bit more accountability, or perhaps even should get opportunities to go work elsewhere, right? And I think what we see is as we focus on those opportunities to be effective with our teams, culture self-selects out. The culture sort of takes us up. And as we become like those centers of excellence, and fair is fair, and the yardstick is the same for everybody, and people are held accountable, then I think that's what everybody wants to know. When we talk about what people want. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be understood. And here's the news flash: that was the same 25 years ago. Everybody wanted to know that if I come and work, yeah, I'll get a paycheck, but do you value me? And I think if we create these cultures where we see the good, we see the bad, and we create like 360 peer reviews, so it's not just some subjective feedback from a boss, but hey man, here's what your peers are saying. And then we take that input and we turn those into career pathing or learning opportunities. And we say, here's the issue. Here's what we're going to do to provide the learning opportunities. Here's the reward for getting better. And here's the consequence if you don't. It comes back to adulting. We're like, it's funny as I've got older, my parents have gotten smarter. It's like I learned that they really knew all along. how do we bring corrective action to our children, right? Not because they're children, but because it's a great mental model. We want to be clear about the issue. We want to be clear about why the issue is bad. We want to be clear about the opportunities and why, by the way, it's better to do it. And here's the consequences. I'm all about consequences. I think maybe it's a little bit how we deal with things and how we communicate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Failure is always acceptable. Not learning from it isn't, right?
Right. That's right. And I generally say first one's on me, mirror and window sort of management style. Like, how could I set you, a team member, up better for success? Where's my learning opportunity in this? Where was I not clear? Second one, we're going to have a deeper conversation, shall we say. So it's not like we have to, we're not, I don't agree that the current workplaces can or shouldn't have accountability or structure or consequences. I think we're going to need to learn some different communication styles.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't believe that they can't. I think that they don't know how, and that's, because I've seen it in other companies around here and things like that, I mean, their intentions are good, right? They want to run a good company. They want everybody to succeed, but they don't know how to deal with or how to measure really accountability, without, for lack of a better term, pissing somebody off to the point where they quit.
That's right. So, Sun Tzu said, he has this parable where he talks about, when an army failed, if the orders weren't clear, then it's the general's fault. If it was general clear, then it was the soldier's fault. But I think there's always these opportunities to look as I don't care if you're just the lead tech or the owner of the company. I think there's always opportunities to reflect and think, how could we set our team members up for success? Because the reality is, okay, so if our new workforce hasn't been on a job site and doesn't know what is in behind the drywall, we can lament that fact, or we can say that is the new reality. Now, how do I turn that into competitive edge? How can I set up a training center to address these specific? How can I collect data and turn that data into teachable moments, and that becomes my strength? And then how can I market that and make it recruitment strength, and then turn it into a marketing opportunity?
Agree. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me. So let me ask you this. You're obviously very passionate, about what you do, and so I'm curious, what is it that you love most, about the trades, about what you do in this industry?
Yeah, I'm just sold out on the people.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say.
for all I've just ragged on, this is my tribe. It's funny because I have suspiciously soft hand, as my techs like to point out. It's been a while since I've beat that. A ride along doesn't count as a day in the field, right? And my wife says, I'm blue. I'm white collar, but I identify as blue. Listen, America, the trades, they have provided me with a life that is fantastic. It's a life of security. They've taught me skills that are transferable, that the learning opportunities, because I'm investing in myself, and that's me. I get to, any of us in the trades or commodity that can be put to use and invested in for a greater return in any of us. And so it's just there's not that many people, and plus I think our industry has a little bit of a self-esteem problem, and I think that's where some of it goes. And it's funny, I get to be with construction guys usually early in the morning. I get to do breakout sessions, and it's funny because they're the friendliest, lovingest guys, but they're like, they're quite stone faced, and we don't like to show a lot. But man, I just believe that they're some of the best people. And I think small businesses, when you look at how many contractors are, the opportunity for entrepreneurship, I kind of think they're the fuel of certainly a large part of the engine that is Americans' economy. And what's not to love? What is not to love?
That's it, man. In a nutshell, right? That's it. What's not to love? So if you could say one thing to the listeners about choosing a career in the trades, what would that be?
tell your story. Obviously get into the trades, and then as soon as you are, be the evangelist. Tell the story, and set yourself reminders. If you haven't told, have you told anybody about how all the upsides in the last month? And set yourself. Have you had, have you referred anybody to your company? You know, um, there's a self-interested part of that that we should all be focused on. But there's listen, I just believe what's good for the hive is good for the bee, and the better we make the trades for each other, the better like I'll be fine. But if I take care of the hive, I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really what it is, is you want to make an impact, you want to change something, and you want to really make a difference in some form or another. This is the way to do it. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. There's so many people that are looking for a why in life. Like there's no coincidence that if we look at correlations of wealth and depression compared to other parts of the world, we're like on a Maslowian level, our security for the most part is taken care of. We're good, and yet we have people that are calling out for reason. And man, to build up your community, to build the hospitals, the schools, to take care of your family and neighbors, and to actually so the old meme and the joke is like, when kids are driving with their dad, the trade stats, like, hey, work tonight, let's work tonight. Like, my kids are sick of that, right? But we get to do that. That's cool. We get to help our friends and neighbors. We get to make our communities better. And I think there's a lot of people that would like, if they could catch that opportunity, then the trades would start to take on a little bit of a different pallor or color.
No, yeah. I think so. So I know you're an avid reader, and this is for me. So what if you had to pick one book and say that what is your favorite book? I'm dying to know.
Okay, so I'm not going to include the Bible because I feel like that's everybody's sort of go-to.
Okay.
Books of faith, all that good stuff. I'm gonna give. Can I cheat? Can I give two? No, I'll give one. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a weekend read. I'm sure many people have heard of it. He was a psychotherapist. Unfortunately, had the unfortunate luck of being Jewish during the war, and it tells a story in his book of his family being rounded up, and his experience in death camps, right? So he went to a work camp. It was I think Dachau and Treblinka, and they take his clothes off and they give him rags and they work him and they do experiments, and then they move the whole camp and they march people. People are dying left and right. Gets to the second one and they give him raggier rags. Same story. Goes to the third one, and this is an extermination camp, as he tells it in the book. And what he has this horrible feeling, and as he's putting on, I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to spoil the ending, but
no spoilers.
He puts on this uniform that they gave him, and as he's putting it on and he sees the chimneys, he puts his hand in the pocket and he pulls out this little piece of paper and he recognizes it instantly, paraphrasing, and basically it was like the Jewish equivalent of the Our Father. And he has this sort of epiphany at this moment that you can't control if your tongue falls, you can't control if you're dehumanized, you can't control how people treat you. But man, if you can walk into the gas chamber with a prayer on your lips, that's your choice. And he just has this revelation about the power of choice in our life. And he just tells a story so powerfully. And like I say, first half of the book is probably a couple hours read. The second half is more about logotherapy and his practice, which you don't necessarily need to read unless you're interested. But boy, I think that book hit me between the eyes. And I've got a couple other recommendations, but I'll save those for later.
Awesome, cool. Well, before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, be good to one another.
Love it.
Be good. Look after one another. Be safe. Go home with your families. Invest in yourself, and have a great. Enjoy this go around that we get, because it's precious.
Eddie, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
So it's incredible. I think you're doing a great service advocating for the trade and looking after the beehive.
Thank you, sir.